So let's debate the second prompt.
Okay. Do you disagree that trans men are men?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important for the discussion to kind of define our terms here. So can you please tell me what's your definition for man?
Man is someone who has an accordance to be within the socio-cultural norms, those of that with traits are typically associated with the male gender. So that's exactly what I define as man. And if you meet that definition and criteria, then I would consider you a man.
Okay, so what would some of those traits be? Just give me an example.
Again, it depends on the culture. So different cultures, it's someone who has a desire to be associated with the norms, typically associated with a certain culture. So in some cultures, it may be different. And we know some trans people tend to have want to be associated in the social-cultural norms of their desired gender. And so it's the definition Parker gave in a Jubilee video. I think
exactly. And I think it's a very bad definition because you can be a woman and still want to be in accordance. I mean, that's what's been tomboys historically for many years now. It's just been slightly more masculine women. They want to be perceived as being more masculine. They may not want to dress in dresses. I mean, all these things, they can apply to women as well. So I don't think it's a working definition.
I mean, no. In the case of women, there would be something about them that makes them want to be in desire in accordance to the opposite gender and opposite sex. So I would say that if that's the case, then they could absolutely be the opposite sex if they have a desire to be in accordance with opposite gender and sex. And so that's exactly why I bring up that definition. I don't see an issue with it. So again, if you'd like to.
Yeah, because the thing is, I mean, it's very vague because you said certain traits that are in accordance with the male sex, but you can't even list me any traits. So it's a very vague definition. And then when I point out there's certain traits.
That's why it's called
sorry, can I finish talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and when I point out certain traits that may commonly be associated with men, I mean, like wanting to appear to be more masculine, wanting to be in more of a provider role, which is traditionally considered to be more masculine. This is something women can want to do as well, and also people who you would consider women. So I would like you to give me some traits so we can at least see if it maps on someone. That'd be amazing.
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. And that's why I say it's society and culture dependent. Again, in some case, men might have short hair. So, someone who may be biologically female may want to cut their hair short and to be more accordance with the social culture norms typically associated with that sex. And so, they would absolutely be able to identify as male as well. I guess I would ask you, what do you define a man as well?
Yeah, it's someone, a male is someone who, in large part, has XY chromosomes, I would say, but I would also say it's someone who has a nature that's ordered towards producing sperm. I would say someone has a nature that's ordered towards that. So it doesn't mean that men have to be able to produce sperm. I'm just saying their body is ordered towards that. So there could be a deficiency, but it wouldn't change the fact their body is ordered towards that.
Then surely that would be irrelevant. If they aren't, if their body's not ordered towards that wouldn't make them less male since you define it as having XY chromosomes. That's the criteria. So essentially what you're saying is that's kind of just irrelevant whether they can produce sperm or not. You're just basing it purely off of chromosomes.
Kind of, because the thing is, I mean, there can be various different, incredibly rare. They're very rare. It's 0.001% of people that may have either there's certain deformities where you can have XY chromosomes or something like that, or X, or just singular X chromosomes, where you still have a body ordered towards that. So I kind of like to add them both because there can be, though it's very rare, and I think just XY chromosomes is still a way better working definition than the definition you gave. However, I like to add the additional thing on top just to try to cover that very small group of people better.
Okay, yeah, I think you're referring to Turner syndrome and Klinefelter syndrome. I think it's also something called Swyer syndrome as well. There's quite a few where, they have XY chromosomes.
Exactly.
Again, the reason why I said that is because they have a physical female body, they have a uterus. Although they can't give birth and they're infertile, they still don't have the physical makeup of a man. So I think it kind of gets difficult there as well. Would you still define, and also it also works the other way as well. Some people have XX chromosomes, but they have a penis, or they can't produce sperm, they have a penis, they have more masculine features. So I don't know if you still categorize them as women or men. And I feel like this also gets quite difficult because I think the issue is less on what criteria, more what effect does this have in society. So if I ask you, would you use the pronouns of a trans person that they want to use?
I mean, that isn't really what we're debating here. So I don't really see why this is relevant.
No. It kind of very much does link because how they are treated in society, which kind of links to my definition as well. The social culture norms also affects on how they are as men. It's dependent on how they see themselves. That's the point.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go out of the way to disrespect them. I mean, I don't have any hateful intent towards them. I feel bad for them. They're clearly, I mean, they have a very high suicide rate. I think it's, sorry for using that word. I know we're on TikTok, but like, it's like between 30 and 50%. Like, I feel very bad for them. So I wouldn't unnecessarily disrespect them. So I would just not use pronouns when talking to them. I just refer to them by their name usually. But I wouldn't go out my way to disrespect them.
Okay, I mean, I still believe that would be pretty transphobic if you didn't use their preferred pronouns. Just like if they had a name that they prefer to be called, I don't see why you wouldn't want to call them that, but that's besides the point. I guess also it kind of gets interesting with sports as well, which is why I feel like the outliers are also very important because we know genders and sex is not binary, it's bimodal. As you said, there's afflictions, XXY, and, other, as I brought up, the syndromes. And so especially when we talk about sports and whether they're able to compete in sports, would you say the people with these afflictions who, let's say they're XX, but they have male-like bodies, they have a penis, they have male-like bodies, would you say that they should be able to compete in the certain sports of a woman since they're XX and that's your criteria?
I mean, I would say it really depends on the individual case because I mean there can be many variances within. But again, like this is incredibly rare, so I don't even know like why it's worth talking about these incredibly rare cases. I mean, wow, it doesn't apply to broader society in general. But I would say we should judge on an individual case. If someone just so happens to have say XX chromosomes, but they have like all the testosterone of a male that age, that could perhaps be made exceptions. Like I know there was the Iman Khalif situation at the Olympics. There, you could perhaps make an exception based on the person's level of testosterone, whatever. But so I wouldn't make a blanket statement on that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I guess that's your point. I guess we can have a disagreements on definitions and stuff. I still feel like my definition is quite succinct. I know you brought up the example of old tomboys and all of that, but I still think in a broader sense that would make sense for like if I told you, if you found out one day that, let's say you were born do you identify as a man? Let me just ask you, identify as a male?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let's say you were born tomorrow, you woke up in the body of a woman, a cisgendered woman who typically has a female look. How would you feel?
I mean, that's not really how transgenderism is, but I would no, it really isn't. I mean, it isn't like a male brain in a female body. Like that isn't the way it is. I mean, that's been
no, but that definitely links to it. I understand the causes of it. Yes, you are right. It is unfortunately a mental disorder, and it does have some genetic explanations as well as psychological explanations. In terms of genetics, I think there was a study done on twins, monozygotic and dizygotic twins, and found higher rates if the one twin was had gender dysphoria. There was higher rates of another twin having gender dysphoria as well. And I know there's that I do understand that there are some issues with that as well. But damn, I lost my train of thought. I do think there are some important issues to be had, things to be had here. Especially when we come to definitions. Like I do think mine is quite succinct in that someone who identifies, in accordance to the social culture norms, are they typically associated with a certain gender? I do think that's a pretty good succinct definition. So I don't know.
Okay, so solely based on self-identification. It's solely based on that.
Yes, but I would say, especially scientifically, I have seen that people who have gender dysphoria do have their brain parts scientifically associated more in accordance to the opposite gender as well. So I do believe that there is some science behind it, as I mentioned, genetic as well, psychological. So again, it's not just all about that. It's not like all just how they appear in society, although that's a big part of it. There are some scientific bases for it as well. So again,
yeah, but what kind of what I'm getting at here is but if I were to now claim that I am a woman, would you accept me as being a woman? Like I don't really change my appearance or anything, so would you view me as being a woman?
I would, because I do believe that I don't, as much as against me, I don't think it just comes out of nowhere. There must be something scientifically as well, and that's why I include also people, that you'd probably have a brain scan and see like what exactly it is as well. And I do believe that there would be something that makes you want to be more in accordance to be a female woman. And so essentially, yes, I would categorize you as a woman if you.
Yeah, but don't you think if you were to scan like a feminine gay guy, he wouldn't have many of the same things? Because I mean, what you would scan there is just like what parts like light up when you have like reactions to different things would just be like feminine things. You'd act more in accordance with like feminine nature. That would really like what would show up on those scans. I mean, that's really what you're scanning for. Is like what what parts of your brain are active when you like do certain things that are more in accordance with male nature or female nature. Don't you think a lot of those scans would show up for like feminine gay guys as well?
Perhaps that's a possibility. That may be a possibility. And I would say if they want to identify as a woman, I think that would be perfectly fine as well. And I would treat them like a woman. I'd treat them as if they were. I think that's perfectly okay.
So it isn't really scientific then. If you agree with that, then it isn't really scientific because they could still be they could still identify as gay but have the very same results. So it is really solely based on self-identification.
Perhaps that's a fair point. However, I would say, we do observe, especially with brain scans, that they do have parts in accordance to the opposite gender. And so again, as I said, gender is not binary, it's bimodal. It's very much a spectrum. And especially in terms of this case, it very much is a spectrum as well.
Okay, but like okay, yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm like kind of curious because it very quickly becomes a slippery slope. Like, where would you like set the limit? Like, would it be with animal identification, like Therians is a real thing? Would it be with like where kind of is the boundary, and what is your justification for setting the boundary? Assuming you have one.
So saying the boundary, that's a good question, and it's not always clear as well. But I do genuinely think that as you said, it's a fair point. These things, it does get kind of, as I said, it's bimodal. So there's obviously a spectrum. With a spectrum, it's always going to be difficult to have a pinpoint. For example, in skin color, what's black, what's white, it's always going to be difficult to have a pinpoint. And although this, it may be less options here, it's still very much difficult. But I would say perhaps if they have more in accordance to a certain one than another, and I'm sure there are other factors as well, especially how they self-identify. But again, I don't always have all the answers to those sorts of questions. I would have to read into it more. I'm still in the process, but I would definitely say if they have more accordance to with a certain gender, then they absolutely should be treated as such.
Yeah, well, I mean, I absolutely appreciate your honesty in saying that you don't know everything about it. I mean, that is very few people who will be honest about that, and I have a lot of respect for that. But my question is more so towards like, where are the boundaries? Is it animal identification? Is it identification as something that isn't human? Like, will you set a boundary in general?
In terms of set a boundary, in terms of what? As in like what they self-identify as? What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. For what you would accept as being valid self-identification, like which you would refer to someone as the thing they claim to be.
It's a good question. I don't think as much as it may not seem likely, I don't think someone's gonna randomly be like, oh, I want to be this or that just for no
Therians, they are a thing. Like Therians, people who identify as animals. Is that too far?
And I would absolutely advocate for research into people, who are like that. I'd absolutely advocate for research into people with certain brain scans, see if there actually is something going on there. And I think that's definitely the right approach to take. I do know it's not always an easy thing to establish, but I do think that absolutely I would look into brain scans, see if there's a scientific cause, because I always do believe there is a scientific cause for many of these things. So apart from people being like, oh, they're choosing to be this, I believe that would be a scientific cause. And so I'd probably look into that. And if there is, then I'd probably, be like, sure, you can identify as that certain thing.
Okay, well, you just kind of hinted at before that I asked if you would agree that with feminine gay guys that it may show up the same way it would with women identifying males. You just agreed that brain scans would probably show up to be pretty similar there, but you wouldn't identify feminine gay guys as being women. So it doesn't really have a bearing on science here. That's kind of what I got from you. Or am I am I wrong here?
I think we're kind of conflating perhaps sex and gender here. Sex, definitely, I wouldn't say you obviously can't change your sex, but gender, of course, is a spectrum. So they would be obviously very close on the spectrum, but again, there would be a definite distinction between one and the other, although it may be close.
Okay, so I just don't really think there's any good basis for it, but as you said yourself, I mean, it is kind of you don't have all the answers. I mean, no one does.
More research into it, and
which is fair. I absolutely respect that. But even like when I see like that academic level of people discussing this, I have a very hard time seeing people like actually defend this quite well, because it is really just a bunch of arbitrary. It really boils down to, I view them like that because they want to be. It doesn't really have any bearing on reality. It's really like the sense that I get even when looking at it like the academic side of it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, and of course I said I'll look into it. I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, you do bring up some good points.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I won't take up any of your time now. If like it's kind of dying out a bit, I'd like you to talk to someone else now. Cheers, mate.
Thank you. Damn, that was a good debate. That was actually pretty decent. Not bad. Anyways, let's get to the next person in there. Everyone double tap the screen. Let's reach 2,000 likes. We can absolutely do it. Everyone double tap the screen. Feel free to debate on these topics. Make sure you're 18 years old and above. Press the guest request down below, and I'm going to be adding some more people in. And yeah, if you do want to debate, again, as I said, join the guest request. These are the topics. And yeah. How old are you?
33, homie.
Okay, what do you want to debate?
All right, so if I'm reading this right, it says being a furry is fine.
Being a furry is fine, yes.
And then it says trans men are men, spanking is abuse, right?
Well done. You passed first grade reading. Congratulations. Yeah, that's what it says.
Man, bro, shit, I only got my GED. I only made it that far. How you call it?
Are you a teacher?
I'm sorry. Just with trans men are men, right? Do you believe like if they really went all the way with the transition, the full way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about 100 head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider that trans man a trans man?
Yes.
Why?
Again, my definition
Is
of
this a
course,
question? Just a question.
someone who identifies with the social norms typically associated with opposite or with the gender that they want to associate with. So yes, absolutely. Even without the transitioning, I think that if they have a desire to be in accordance to the social culture norms, it would be that gender.
So if a grown man, right?
Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious, man. I don't know if he's all right, man. I don't know if he's all right, man. I fear for his health. I fear for his health. I'm going to get the next person in here. How old are you?
Hello. Hi.
How old are you?
20.
Okay, what do you want to debate?
Spanking is abuse.
Okay, why do you disagree that spanking is abuse?
Okay, now, according to, like, depending on how you were raised.
So can you speak louder? Like you're speaking very slowly and quietly. I know your parents might be sleeping next door, but please try and speak loud if you can, so everyone in their life can hear you.
Yeah. So I was saying spanking is not abuse because, number one, depending on how you were raised, the community you were raised, the level of spanking you get depends on if it's abuse or not. Spanking
No,
is
that's not
just
true at all. Any physical contact with someone else against their consent is physical abuse. That's just a fact. It's not that if it's all just a little tap. In the same way, if I touch someone without their consent, or in a weird way, that would absolutely be physical assault in any way, shape, or form. There's no justification. It's very simple. I don't know why that's so difficult to understand. It is the case.
okay. Would you agree if someone commits a crime, they should get like I don't really want to use the word punishment, but they should get like the consequence of their action.
Yes.
So why do you think that's not correct? Because when you talk of abuse is not something that you just look at the child and you say, oh, spanking is not something that you just look at the child sitting down and you say, oh, come here, I'm just beating you for
No, it
absolutely
doesn't matter even if you're upset with him. In the same way, if you were upset with your wife, it wouldn't justify you hitting your wife. Do you understand that? There's no justification for physically abusing minors. And the fact that you're so intent to be able to do that just shows that there's something wrong with your brain, which is very sad. But it's physical abuse.
It is not.
There's no justification. And I'm sorry, but you're speaking far too quietly that people on TikTok, they're getting bored, man. They're getting bored. Let's get the next person in there. Everyone double tap the screen. Let's reach 4,000 likes. Double tap the screen. There is no justification for it whatsoever. There's no reason to try and justify it. Everyone double tap the screen. Be patient. We'll get you on. Just double tap the screen and be patient. Hey, would you want to debate? Okay, this person is not joining. We'll get the next person in there. Everyone double tap the screen. If you disagree with any of these prompts, feel free to come up and debate. Hey, would you want to debate?
Oh, I'm supposed to come up if I disagree. I'm so sorry. Drop me down.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, only if you disagree, and make sure you're 18 years old and above. If you have any questions, I'll read some comments. Since we're waiting for some more people to join, I'll read some comments. It's the most effective way to discipline your kid. No, it is not. All the evidence indicates that it's absolutely one of the worst ways you could even try and discipline someone, and it's really not even that effective. So if you're spanking your child, you're using ineffective methods of physically abusing minors. That's completely false. All the data indicates that. National Institute of Health, you can look it up. Did a study on physical treatment of child, and it has more aggressive children. It causes long-term issues for your children. It is truly terrible to physically abuse children, and it's so sad that it's normalized. It is not okay whatsoever. Everyone double tap the screen. Let's get some more people in here. And thing is, would you do it to your wife if you a grown adult? No, if you wouldn't do it to a grown adult, there's absolutely no reason you should do it to your child. And that's how the cycle of trauma occurs. You're correct. So according to this dude, if an infertile male, you're not a male. No, not absolutely not whatsoever. It's due to accordance. It's based on how you feel. And accordance to be